Hi there, sisters. It's been a while since I did a Facebook Live. Been recovering, and I know many of you have been praying for our family this summer after we lost our baby, and I really want to thank you for that. Since that has happened, we've also been walking through a lot of other valleys and things that have been going on in life, and in the midst of that, we have been working through some things in some family relationships that became apparent, I think just through the trauma of the miscarriage and the reality of life and how fragile it is. It kind of stirred some things up and brought some things to the surface. And so I wanted to warn you about a mistake that I have recently become aware of that I was making as a mom. I've been wanting to do this Facebook Live for a while to warn you, to share with you, because I think that this is a potential mistake that a lot of us moms could make. And it's the mistake of not listening to our kids enough. And I'm going to be really honest with you guys and share with you what I was doing, because a lot of you may think, oh, I'm really being proactive and trying, but you still might not be coming across to your kids as if you're really listening. And this is extremely important. This is potentially one of the most important, crucial things for your relationships, especially with your teenagers. And the reason why is because listening is one of those things where if your kids don't feel like you're listening to them, they can automatically jump to some conclusions like, my mom and dad don't love me, or they don't know me. And I think that a lot of us think that when we're spending alone time with our teenagers, or we're in the car with them alone, and we're purposeful, right? Like, we can think to ourselves, okay, I really want to engage with my kid at this time, and I really want to talk to them. Well, that's on your time and your schedule, and it's good to do that, but how many times do our teenagers or our kids come to us with something that they want to share with us, but we're just too busy in that moment to actually hear what they're saying when they're ready to share? And if you continue doing that over and over a long period of time, it can really hurt your kids, and it can really hurt your relationships. So for a long time, I'm just going to share with you, I put down James 1:19. I'm just going to read that really quick, and then I want to share what kind of we've been walking through. It says, "Know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger, for the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. Therefore put away all filthiness, rampant wickedness, and receive with meekness the implanted word which is able to save your souls. But be doers of the word, not hearers only, deceiving yourselves." So clearly we can be hearing someone and still be deceiving ourselves that we are actually listening to. And I think that sometimes we do that as moms. We can be making eye contact with our kids, or maybe not making eye contact with them and saying, yeah, honey, and listening to them, but not really listening to them. Do you know what I mean? Where you're making eye contact and you really care, and you're having acknowledgement responses, and you're asking them questions, and you're really showing that you care about what they're talking about. And I get it, it's easy as a mom. We have a million things on our to-do list, right? And a lot of times our kids are just not really aware of when they're coming to us with things, and we can be in the middle of paying bills, or in the middle of replying to a really important email, or in a deep conversation with our own mom or a family member, or praying, or spending time in the Word. There's just so many things that we could be doing, or just checking. We're in that mode of that 20 minutes in the day when we're checking off as many things as fast as possible. We're getting laundry going, we're getting the dishes going, we're getting the kids ready to jump in the car, right? There's just so many things that can be going on, and it's easy for us in the midst of that to not really stop and listen to their hearts and recognize that it's all those little times built up over a long period of time that tell our kids that we love them and that we're listening to them. So, a couple weeks ago, I shared this with our fellowship in church a couple weeks ago, and I'm hopeful that this is going to reap some benefit in your relationship with your kids. So, I'm going to go way back, but I'm going to make this pretty quick. So, I actually thought I didn't have a problem with listening, because when I was a teenager, I felt like I wasn't really listened to by very many people, actually. No one really asked me questions or cared about what my opinion was on anything. You know, whether it was in church or school or, friendships even. And so that really hurt me. And I went to school, to college, was a social sciences major, psychology. And here I am taking psychology classes. I wanted to either do family counseling or be a youth pastor on the mission field. And so I thought, this is going to be my profession, and I loved it. I was reading about active listening skills. I had a whole book on it, and making acknowledgement responses, yeah, and repeating things back to people so that they know that you're hearing them. And I thought I was a professional at that, because that was what I was going to college for. And then I became a mom of little kids. And I tried practicing that a lot, especially with my oldest kids, who are teenagers now. And that's what makes this so hard, is that I was doing my best when I was closest to that education, because I was so aware of it. So to have a child come to you and say, I don't feel like you're listening to me, when you have tried to make that your main goal as a mom, to win their hearts so that you have the right to speak into their life, it was super hard to hear. Super hard. Sorry. I thought that after 2 weeks it maybe wouldn't be so fresh. And but I want to warn you guys that over time, when you're a mom of little kids and you get used to training them, and you are constantly like, no, you need to share, and you're quick, right? You have to be quick on your feet. No, don't hit your brother. No, don't put your finger in that plug-in. No, don't do this. No, don't do that. Like when you have toddlers and little kids, you have to learn to be a good teacher. You do. And in the midst of training your kids to be good listeners, you can train yourself out of being a good listener. And that's what my warning is to you today. To really evaluate yourself and ask yourself, are you training yourself to be a good teacher so much so that you're not a good listener? You're not good at asking questions of your friends, of your family members, of your kids, of your husband. Are you good at listening and hearing their heart? Or are you really good at being a teacher and really good at managing your home and delegating to people and managing people? Because a lot of times we can focus on being a good homemaker, and that somehow is reflective of who we are as a mom. But we need to be careful, because in the midst of training our kids, we're training ourselves too, and we're developing some potentially bad habits and not being good at listening. So a few weeks ago, when one of our teenagers came to me and said, I don't feel like you listen, and I don't feel like you care about what I want to share with you, and that makes me feel like you don't love me. Like, that was her conclusion. I have never been so broken in my life, because I gave her the best years of my life. But as I started to reflect, I realized that there was this blind spot in my parenting from all those years. I mean, you got to realize, like, we have 7 kids, so I've had a lot of little kids. You have to be good at getting people in and out of the car. in a short period of time, because buckling all 5 kids under 7 up can take 25 minutes. So you get good at delegating. Help your little brother put on the shoes. Help your little brother buckle up. Help your little sister, all the time. Otherwise, you wouldn't get anything done. It's the same thing with doing laundry, with homeschooling. You can do that so much that you train yourself out of the ability to slow down and connect. But even when she shared that, I thought it was kind of an extreme connection to say, I don't feel loved, from you're not listening. So I started studying scripture again and just recalling scriptures. What does God's word say love is? And you all know the verse in 1 Corinthians chapter 13 says, love is patient and kind. It does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures. Love never ends. Listen, love is patient. Doesn't it take massive patience when you have a huge to-do list to sit and listen? It takes huge amount of patience to put aside your agenda that you've maybe scheduled out in your well-planned gal planner or whatever you have, to set it aside and care about the relationship most. So now, after I've reflected on what biblical love looks like scripturally, love is patient. It takes patience to set aside the non-eternal things and to put what's most important first, which is listening to your child. That's what tells them that they're loved. One of the things that tells them that they're loved. And this brings up another point too. So some of you may be able to relate to this. I think that certain people we all have different personality types. We're all wired differently, right? But listening and speaking and communicating is more important to certain types of personalities, right? Like there's a certain personality type that really, they're thinkers. And the way they feel most valued is that you would value what they think, that you would listen to what they're thinking about. That's what makes them feel most valued and loved. And I know this one at a personal level because it's totally me. But as I started reflecting on that, that's totally my daughter. She feels most valued and loved when people care about what she's thinking about, when you're listening to her thoughts. So that's what speaks love. So if you have a child that is more of a banker personality, that's more of a thinker, you really need to take the time to ask them what they're thinking. Now, one of the things that was kind of confusing to me, and this is where another warning comes in, is that I was spending a lot of time with this particular child. I actually started meeting with her regularly every Saturday for 3 to 4 hours to connect, to sit and listen and talk and share fun memories, and to start developing a new kind of relationship that was more like mentoring and discipling, and to have a friendship because she's getting older. And I was being really intentional for the last 6 to 7 months about that. And so to hear this was super shocking to me after all of my attempts at trying to be a good listener. I had actually taken that James 1:19 verse and was meditating on it a lot and thinking about it a lot and praying, Lord, help me to be good at this. And so it killed me that here I am trying to be this, and this is the very thing that I apparently am failing at. And it hurt really bad. But you know what? I have to say, I'm super thankful that this has come up with our oldest child before she's gone away to college, because I have work to do. I'm not perfect. I have work to do. I'm aware of it. I care deeply that my kids know and feel loved. And if trying to be a better listener means setting aside hospitality for a while so that I can spend more time with them, If it means setting aside sports or something else so that I can have more one-on-one time with my kids, then that's just going to have to be the sacrifices that we make, because this is what's important. And so I have two things that I just want to end with that to reiterate. One, if you're a mom of young kids, be careful that you don't only teach yourself to be a good teacher, be careful not to train yourself to be a bad listener. And two, love is patient and it bears all things. You can't bear all things unless you're listening. 3, I think it's important that we consistently ask our kids, how can we get better as a mom? That we're humble enough to ask them, because we do have blind spots. And if we're going to be doers, not just hearers of the word, and if we want to really have relationships with our kids that go beyond our homes, beyond their childhood, we need to be willing to hear their hearts, even if that means pointing out some of our mistakes. We're not perfect. We can never come across that way, because that's hypocritical and it will push our kids away. So I'm praying more than ever for not just my relationships, but all the moms. It really hit me hard, because I do believe that I trained myself out of this thing that mattered so much to me. And it was so subtle. And so I'm praying for you guys that you can be good listeners to your husbands, even in the midst of raising kids. They need to know that you're hearing them, and they need to know that you care. You need to go on dates away from your kids just to listen to your husband better. Then you need to do that. You need to show your kids that you really care about hearing what their dad has to say at the dinner table, and not be interrupting them. When he's trying to lead devotions, zip your lip and let him lead the family. Let him rise up. This can play into so many of our relationships, guys. So thanks for joining me this morning, and I hope you're encouraged by it. If you'd like me to be praying for you specifically on this, send me an email at Angie@courageousmom.com, or leave a comment. I think that it would bless other people. Share your testimonies. And I just want to encourage you too, that my daughter and I are really growing closer. God is so good. And because His word heals, we are healing. We're healing great. There's already been reconciliation within the first 4 or 5 days, and we're moving towards a really deep, better relationship. And it opened it up for me to be able to speak some truth into her life too, because I was willing to hear her speak truth into my life. And so if you're having a hard time speaking truth into one of your teenagers' lives, maybe you need to allow them to speak truth to you too, because sometimes that alone can break down the barriers for you to be able to share truth with them. Okay, guys, I love you all. Have a good day mothering. Bye.